Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the August meeting of the Monroe County Plan Commission to order. So I just have one announcement before we get started. Item number 4 on the agenda, the Muirfield Phase 5 Subdivision Preliminary Plat Amendment 2 has been continued by the petitioner, so that case will not be heard tonight. So Jackie, to get us started, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Margaret Clements.
Here.
John Enright Randolph. Scott Ferris.
Here.
Jeff Morris.
Here.
Cheryl Munson.
Here.
Edward Ullman.
Here.
Dee Owens. Jerry Pittsford. Julie Thomas.
I received a note that she'll be arriving late.
Okay. And then Chris Cockrum, I believe, is not going to be in attendance. So as of right now, we still have 5 people in person and a quorum.
Thank you, Jackie. Moving on, would you introduce the evidence of tonight?
Sure. I'd like to introduce the following items into the evidence: the Monroe County zoning ordinance as adopted and amended, the Monroe County comprehensive plan as adopted and amended, the Monroe County subdivision control ordinance as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Plan Commission rules of procedure as adopted and amended, and the cases that were legally advertised and scheduled for a hearing on tonight's agenda.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the evidence as presented?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the introduction of evidence. A vote yes is a vote to approve. Scott Ferris.
Yes.
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Cheryl Munson.
Yes.
Edward Ullman.
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, moving on to the approval of the agenda. As a reminder, we'll need to mention item number 4 being continued in a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. A vote yes is a vote to approve the agenda with the amendment of item number 4 being continued by the petitioner. Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Cheryl Munson.
Yes.
Edward Ullman.
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Scott Ferris.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we have no minutes to approve tonight, no administrative business, and no unfinished business, so we'll jump straight into new business. First case is REZ-24-4. This is the Thomas HP overlay rezone. This is a preliminary hearing, and a waiver of final hearing is requested. So Drew, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. This is a property at 6056 East State Road 46. It's 0.74 acres in Salt Creek Township, Section 5. And the proposal is for an HP overlay, or historic preservation overlay. So the petitioner is requesting to rezone the site to add it to the historic preservation overlay district, which is defined in the zoning ordinance. The most recent Indiana Historic Sites and Structures Inventory, or IHSSI County Survey for Monroe County, is available via the State Historic Architectural and Archaeological Research Database, also known as SHARD, which indicates that the property is rated as contributing. A C, or contributing, rating is given to any properties meeting the basic inventory criterion of being pre-1940, but that are not important enough to stand on their own as individually outstanding or notable. Such resources are important to the density or continuity of the area's historic fabric. Contributing properties can be listed in the National Register of Historic Places if they are part of an historic district, but do not usually qualify individually. This property did not appear in the Monroe County Interim Report of 1989. The Historic Preservation Overlay does not negate the underlying zoning district, which is suburban residential, and properties within the HP overlay are subject to the regulations of both the zoning district and the HP overlay itself. If there is a conflict between these two requirements of zoning districts, the requirements of the historic being that the zoning district and the historic overlay district, the more restrictive requirements apply. It is important to note that the HP overlay regulations are concerned with exterior appearance and preservation of historic features, and not with other zoning or land use requirements. So this was heard by the Historic Preservation Board of Review a number of times, and the ultimate decision was to forward this with a positive recommendation to this body. And they cited two of the criteria that are from Chapter 810-3, which are on the screen now. Number one being an association with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of county history. And number three, the distinctive characteristics of a type, period, or method of construction. On this property, there exists a single-family residence and a detached garage and/or a carriage house. The property was originally operated as a bed and breakfast called Southern Comfort Bed and Breakfast, and that started in 2000. The new property owners that are the petitioners for this case do not have any interest in pursuing the bed and breakfast use on the property. They are going to maintain it as a single-family residence. With the help of many different entities that are involved with historic research and historic preservation, the petitioners were able to provide a lot of information about the site, starting with that the original owner was William Gregg Allen, who served in Company 1 of the 38th Indiana Veteran Volunteer Infantry during the American Civil War. The petitioner also provided tax records, photos, and newspaper articles detailing the method of construction of the existing residence and its ties to Arbutus Hill due to its proximity of the area known for the arbutus flowers presence, or trailing arbutus. As I stated, the property did operate as a Southern Comfort Bed and Breakfast. That was in the year 2000. And also there is evidence of the property exhibiting architectural characteristics akin to the central passage / hall and parlor type architecture. And that was popular in the southern states and was around in the late 1800s. The home does appear to have many of the qualifiers under this style, including 2 rooms wide and 1 room deep, stairway and 2 interior doors leading to the hall and the parlor, stairway leading to a loft with windows in the gable ends and built in heavy timber framing with hand-hewn logs. The house has 2 chimneys, one for the hall and one for the parlor. And as I stated, this style was popular in southern states, and which would have made it more rare in Indiana. All right. So here I have the location map. It's in Salt Creek Township off of East State Road 46. In the bottom right corner, I have a snippet of the SHARD database that indicates properties that are contributing, notable, or outstanding within the county. And you'll see all those pink dots. Those are all contributing resources that are identified on that survey. I also will note this roadway that you see on both of these snippets traveling south, that is the presumed Arbutus Hill where the arbutus flower was known to be located. More on that later. Current zoning map, it is conservation residential. Site conditions map here, as you'll note, all the slopes are under 15%. Here we have a few photographs of the property and the structures there. The left photograph, the single-family residence, as well as the right photograph with the carriage house. This is from Chapter 810-3. These are the criteria that the Historic Preservation Board of Review must find in order for it to for a property to be eligible for the HP overlay. One or more of these items can be identified through the review process, and through that they came up with these 2, as I stated before. 1, in association with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of county history, and number 3, the distinctive characteristics of a type, period, or method of construction. Here we have the letter to the Plan Commission from the petitioners, detailing some of their research into the property and citing the original owner of Mr. William G. Allen, a American Civil War veteran, and then also information about the historic architectural style of the property. Here we have a rough sketch of the floor plans that include the multiple fireplaces and the hall and parlor type of design. And here are a few more exhibits that were included in the staff report. The original land deed to Mr. Allen, as well as property tax records that indicate, or at least give a better idea of when structures were added to the site to kind of date the age of the structure. On the left, we have a snippet from the Herald Times that talks about the Arbutus Hill, a popular, I believe, popular destination of Indiana University students back in the day. They would travel by carriage there to see the flowers bloom. And then on the right, a hall and parlor snippet of information that talks about the style of architecture. All right, that brings me to staff's recommendation. Staff recommends forwarding a positive recommendation to the Monroe County Board of Commissioners on the petition's compatibility with the Monroe County Comprehensive Plan and the recommendation made by the Monroe County Historic Preservation Board of Review. I'll take any questions.
Drew, before you continue, I want to state for the record that Commissioner Thomas and Mr. Enright Randolph have joined us in person, and Ms. Owens has joined us online, and Mr. Pittsford is here in person also. Okay, now does anybody have any questions for Drew?
I'll just make one comment since I kind of showed up at the end of the presentation. I did have time to review the packet. I am familiar with this petition. Just wanted to make sure that I stated that.
Any other questions or comments for Drew? Okay, not seeing any, we can turn to the petitioner. If the petitioner is here or online or has a representative that wishes to speak, you will have 15 minutes. Okay. Not seeing anyone. If there's anyone, we can turn to public comment portion. If there's anyone here in person or online who wishes to speak in favor of this petition, please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand. Not, but if there's anyone who wishes to speak against this petition here in the room, please come to the podium or online, raise your virtual hand.
I do see the petitioners on the call. I don't know if they're able to raise the hand, but they are Creighton and Shannon Thomas. So if they could be promoted so that they can speak if they wish.
Okay. If you wish to speak, please unmute.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi there.
Okay. All right. Well, just real quick, I just wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to look over this. And we've been, this has been a journey, and it's kind of still ongoing as we just continue to, find new information and stories about the property and the owners. And we've been working with Drew and the Preservation Board since March. So this has been a journey just with the board, and we kind of started this about 6-8 months ago. We've only been in the house since 2022, also about 2 years. And we were pretty new at this. We bought the house because we just loved the house, and not really knowing anything much about, the history of the home or who owned it, and just kind of one kind of foot in front of the other, we just start to discover things about the house that we think was unique and interesting, and it just took us down this road to where we are today. And it's just been a lot of fun and interesting, and we just really think that the house and the property and the story has just a lot of value for the Monroe County. And again, I just wanted to thank Drew and everyone at the board for being patient and really helping us along with this.
Okay. Thank you both for joining us online tonight, and thank you also for protecting this property and bringing this forward. So while we have the petitioners online, are there any questions for the petitioners? Yeah, Commissioner Thomas?
I just want to comment that we really do appreciate your attention to detail and all the information you provided and the great photographs. It's an amazing property, and we really appreciate you pursuing this, so thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I believe we've got one hand raised online, Jackie or Drew. I can't see who that is.
It's D. Owens.
Okay, Dee, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the Allens for all the nice pictures, taking us on a tour. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, any other, yeah.
No, I want to thank the owners for coming forward with this nomination. I was on the Historic Preservation Board for 10 years, and we don't have lots of properties that have been brought forward by the owners. And I think you set a great example for others, and I hope your efforts will inspire others to bring forth their historic properties. So
Oh,
thank you.
well, thank you. It's very encouraging.
Any other comments or questions from members of the Plan Commission? Okay, thank you both for joining us tonight. We can go back now to public comment portion. So if there's anybody here in the room or online that wishes to speak in favor or against this petition, please come forward or raise your virtual hand. Okay, seeing nobody, we will come back to the Plan Commission for discussion or a motion. Does anybody have any comments?
I too find this to be very exciting and very educational. And so I'd like to move approval of case number REZ-24-4 at 6056 East State Road 46. And with thanks to the owners for this historical preservation initiative.
Second.
Go ahead, give that one to Edwin.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to send a favorable recommendation to the Board of Commissioners for the Thomas HP Overlay Rezone, which is REZ-24-4. This does include a waiver of final hearing. So a vote yes is a vote to send a favorable recommendation to the Board of Commissioners for a final decision. Jeff Morris?
Yes.
Cheryl Munson?
Yes.
Edward Ullman? Dee Owens?
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford?
Yes.
Julie Thomas?
Yes.
Margaret Clements?
Yes?
Tron Enright Randolph?
Yes.
Scott Ferris?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Okay, thank you again for bringing this forward, and best of luck on your journey of owning a historic home. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
moving on to case PUO-24-2, the Cutright Boat Storage PUD. This is the preliminary hearing and with a waiver of final hearing requested. So Drew, again, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. This property is located at 8370 South State Road 46. It is one 4-acre parcel and one 11.3-acre parcel, and it's in Polk Township, Section 16. It is located in the Environmental Constraints Overlay, Area 3, and is currently zoned Forest Reserve. The petitioner is requesting to establish a planned unit development on the subject property. The intent behind establishing the planned unit development is to operate the property under a mixed set of uses, including boat storage, residential, and office. If the planned unit outline plan is approved by the county commissioners, the petitioner will be directed to submit a planned unit development plan. For those who do not know, a planned unit development is a kind of customized zoning that allows for a combination or unique set of uses that would not normally be possible under other zoning designations. And essentially, the applicant creates a PUD outline plan that will dictate what uses or mix of uses will be permitted on the property, as well as what design standards will be used on the property and the activity there. The outline plan is typically crafted in a way that wherever it falls silent, the rules of the underlying zoning district apply. The petitioner owns and operates Cutright Marina, located on Lake Monroe, approximately 2 miles north of the petition site. And the petitioner states in their letter that the proposed boat storage facility will allow for storage of boat trailers during the duration of renters maintaining the boat on the water by rental of the boat slip at the petitioner's marina. In addition to establishing boat storage use on the property, the petitioner is proposing to perform a Type E administrative subdivision to adjust the lot lines between the two parcels, thereby creating an Area A and an Area B. Area A will consist of 5 acres, and while the Area B on the south will consist of 10.4 acres. Area A will consist of the boat storage facilities, the residence, and the office. And Area B will be purely residential and will be operated under the estate residential type uses. And is also expected to undergo a subdivision to create several lots from that parcel. The petitioner intends and expects that the existing residence on Area A, which is an existing manufactured home, will be upgraded and remodeled to serve as a on-site live-in manager location that will also have an office inside for the business. Here we have the location map and the site conditions map that indicate the slopes greater than 18%. That is the slopes that are protected under the Area 3 of the Environmental Constraints Overlay. Here we have the current zoning map, Forest Reserve, and the comprehensive plan has it designated as farm and forest. Here are some definitions of the uses that are proposed for this planned unit development, including boat storage, single-family dwelling, and office. As I stated, Area A, 5 acres, and Area B, 10.4 acres. That is after a Type E to adjust the lot lines between the two existing parcels. In Area A, approximately 1.7 acres will be utilized for the boat storage, and an expansion area of less than a half acre on the north end will be set aside for possible future growth of that use. As I stated, the existing manufactured residence is to be upgraded and remodeled to serve as a residence and office. And then Area B, the southern lot, as I stated, will be consistent with the state residential zone and with the current underlying zone as Forest Reserve, as a note. Here are some design standards that came about through the petitioner's letter. There will be a detention pond on site, and this was reviewed by the Drainage Board on August 13th. And I have some comments from the MS4 coordinator included in this presentation as well. The petitioner proposes a driveway access to the boat storage facility and boat storage spaces be gravel in lieu of pavement, so that is one of the design standards. There are no common use areas planned within this PUD. Each residential structure will have dedicated lawn yard space appropriate for the residential use. And slope areas and other non-designated green space areas on the lots will be set aside in a conservation easement. This is the list of development standards that are also included in the petitioner's letter and outline plan statement. Talks about sidewalks not being installed, setbacks, it establishes those. Talks about buildable area as well as drainage. Signage as well, minimal signage at the entrance to the boat storage facility compliant with the Monroe County sign ordinance. Lighting standards, all lighting will be compliant with dark sky policies. There's also an item on septic, number 7. There is an existing septic permit for the residential structure on the north lot, which currently is 4.1 acres. There is evidence of septic systems for the abandoned residential lots on the existing 11-acre parcel, which is the south area. Septic permits will be obtained for any residential structure built on the properties, and the size of the buildable area on the parcels indicates adequate area for locating septic systems. A draft site plan is submitted with this petition depicting the planned boat storage facilities area and the expansion area, the location of the residence/office, and the reuse of the manufactured home and buildable areas on the 2 residential lots. So I will show the draft site plan here in a minute. The office use is noted here as an accessory use to the boat storage facility. And it is a covered boat storage facility, optional development of a small area for covered boat storage. And then item 10 indicates a phasing plan, which does involve the cleanup of trash, debris, discarded vehicle parts, materials, and tires. And on that note, the petition site, according to the petitioner and their research, seemed to have been a former automotive use on the property some time ago, and it has, since been vacant. There are no longer any structures on that property, but there are remains and debris from that particular use that are strewn about on the parcel. Phase 2 listed here, development of the boat storage facility and upgrade the redevelopment of the manufactured home for the residence and office. And then phase 3 is the development of single-family homes on Area B, which is a long-term development estimated to be 3 to 5 years, which will require a subdivision. Here on the screen, we have the letter and planned unit development outline plan statement from the petitioner and the petitioner's representative. This is included in the staff report. And then also the conceptual site plan that was listed in that letter here as well, detailing Area A as well as Area B. And then a zoom in of both of those areas to give you a little bit more detail of what that will look like. Here are some images that were provided by the petitioner. You can kind of see in some of these images the existing debris left over from the previous owner and use of the lot. And we can come back to these if necessary. Here are some comments from the MS4 coordinator after the drainage board meeting on August 13th, which includes ensuring the site developed area drains to the detention pond. During the development plan review stage, there should be additional water quality treatments if necessary based on the potential pollutants, as well as provide drainage easements on the property. The drainage board also discussed the discharge to steep slopes and the potential for erosion. They also asked if there were any underground storage tanks on the site, and the petitioner, I believe, said that there was a phase 1 environmental study that did not find underground storage tanks on the site. So on the screen now are a few items that were included in the drainage report, including this development basin map, as well as a conceptual development plan that has a little bit more detail on the drainage plan for the detention pond in the south west corner of Area A. All right, so that brings us to the staff's recommendation. Staff recommends forwarding this petition to the Board of Commissioners with a negative recommendation, citing the following. The proposal for Area A does not align with the comprehensive plan designation for farm and forest. The petitioner could petition for a rezone to the limited business zone to acquire the use of boat storage on the northern 4.0 acre parcel without the need for a PUD. The proposal for Area B does not align with the terms of the subdivision control ordinance, and the petitioner did not include language in the PUD outline plan that would otherwise deviate from those requirements of the subdivision control ordinance for a sliding scale or minor subdivision procedure. The petitioner could perform a by right subdivision through the sliding scale subdivision procedure on the southern 11.3 acre parcel without the need for a PUD. I will now take any questions.
Yep, go ahead, Mr. Enright Randolph.
Well, you said something that was interesting. Where they could obtain this use if they went for a rezone to limited business versus a PUD. Is there anything else within the PUD that doesn't really conform with our comprehensive plan, or that just like is glaring to you that brings up concern?
It's, the recommendation is there's two forms to it. There's the Area A and the Area B. And it is both of those that are not aligning with the comprehensive plan, specifically Area A, given that the comprehensive plan has it designated as farm and forest, and they're requesting a mixed use of business on the site. So that's just kind of how PUDs may come about with respect to how the comprehensive plan reads.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Owens, you're next.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask, why didn't they ask for limited business, or do you not know that?
Was the question, why did they not ask for limited business?
Yes.
They're requesting a PUD because they want a mix of uses, which include a single-family residence on the same lot as boat storage, and in addition to an office use on the property.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Any other questions for Drew? Yeah, Mr. Enright Randolph.
And I'm sorry, I saw Jerry put his hand up right when I was recognized. Maybe I'm getting the cart a little too far in front of the horse, but would planning have a recommendation for a potential rezone to limited business, or would you not be able to speak to that because that's not what you're reviewing currently?
I don't know if I can speak to a recommendation until I see a full submittal of materials. But there are other options to maintain a residential use. They currently have 2 lots. So you could, petition for a limited business lot and then a residential lot. Yeah.
No, I guess what I'm really trying to get to is if the PUD that planning's not wanting to see, I know we have taken steps to kind of limit PUDs, even try to get PUDs in compliances, or is it the use that's being asked? And I get that that's a little hard for you to provide feedback, but if so, that's really where I'm going. Is it this approach that they're taking with the PUD, or is it the use itself that draws concern for planning? Is that a straightforward enough question? I understand if you can't really address it, but that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of different items that we review petitions against, including the comprehensive plan, the level of deviation from the existing ordinance, and is the quality or how well-rounded the request of a planned unit development is, because you're essentially creating your own ordinance, and everything, you have to have it very neat and tidy for it to really be a easily administered PUD. So there's a lot of things that are considered here, as well as the other options that are available other than performing a PUD for the property.
And I'll just conclude saying I like the other options. It does seem a bit cleaner, and it has been kind of a pursuit of ours, or at least from my observation of the Plan Commission, to try to reduce the number of PUDs and even get certain ones in more of a compliance measure. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Enright Randolph. Mr. Pittsford, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. A total of 15 acres in what is currently forest reserve zoning, correct? How many houses could be built on that 15 acres?
On 15 acres in the forest reserve, you can perform a sliding scale subdivision, and you can get 2 residential lots out of 15 acres. But currently they have 2 lots. So they have 1 lot that's 4 acres, so that's currently operating as a residence.
Right.
And then they have a 11.4 acre lot. An 11.4 acre lot could go through the sliding scale subdivision and create 2 residential lots under the.
In addition to the 1 house that's already there.
So yes, at the end, owning all of the property, you would have 3 residential lots.
So, okay.
Okay, Mr. Ullman?
Well, I'm not done. I had processing, okay? So if they combine the 2 lots through a type E subdivision, they go with, it's a 15-acre lot, they're still only going to net 3 houses out of the deal, right?
They would not be combining the lots through the Type E. The Type E is more or less a way to adjust the shared lot line between the 2, to adjust their acreages.
Okay, could they combine the 2 lots through a subdivision process and make a single lot for development?
They could combine them into a approximately 15-acre parcel, but then if you perform a sliding scale subdivision for residential purposes, you started with 2 lots and you end with 2 lots.
Okay, all right, so that's important. So they're proposing that once they establish the marina portion and then the remaining 10 acres would have 2 residences on it?
That's my understanding. The
Okay.
outline plan does not explicitly state how many residential lots they will
Okay.
want.
Do those residential lots have to be single family or can they be multifamily?
That is up to the terms of the PUD. It just states,
No, I mean
it just
by
states
right, just
residential.
by right.
Oh, by right?
Right.
By right, they can perform a sliding scale subdivision, and those would be single-family residential.
All right. All right. I'm just trying to generate in my mind the difference between the impact of going fully residential and doing a PUD where you have limited business and residential in that same spot. And it seems to me that there's, other than the traffic generated seasonally by the boat storage, the traffic count's not going to be significantly different regardless of what they do. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I would say that that's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ullman?
Drew, and I apologize, this might show my, my greenness to the understanding of Monroe planning. The Type E administrative subdivision for changing the lot line, that is, the way you just kind of addressed some of Jerry's questions, that is not part of the PUD process, that's additional steps that are kind of being done, or that is part of a PUD process?
So I think the questions that we've been fielding so far, if not the PUD, how could they achieve a similar outcome? So I think Drew just described a process that would just be with the regular zoning, not the PUD zoning. Is that right?
They are requesting, they want to perform a Type E to adjust the lot sizes between the 2. And the part that I'm getting about with the subdivision is that when you when you establish a PUD, you have to be very explicit of how that PUD is functioning. And the zoning ordinance, the way it is written now in the subdivision control ordinance, you perform those subdivisions through the rules and regulations within the subdivision control ordinance. If the PUD does not mention anything about those subdivision methods, then it's kind of this gray area, and we're not sure how that would be applicable, how we would administer that. Basically stating that you can't, if you rezone it PUD, you can't perform a sliding scale subdivision because a sliding scale subdivision is only allowed in select zoning districts, which does not include a PUD. The PUD outline plan as it exists now does not make any reference to wanting to perform a sliding scale and deviating from the zones that it's allowed in the ordinance as it is today.
Okay, now, but, so kind of referencing some of the commentary from staff's recommendation about the limited business and so on, if the petitioner still wanted to pursue moving that lot line to have a 5-acre lot instead of a 4-acre lot, the Type E is still, that's a separate process of its own. It is not part of a PUD. So there's still an option to move that lot line even if they wanted to go the limited business route, not the PUD route.
Correct.
Okay. Now, I know, so thank you. That's question number 1. Question number 2, I know that Elevate is not always perfect, but when I was looking at the county GIS, the parcel that borders the northern unit to the north has a sliver of land that comes down in between 446, or the highway, and the square parcel to the north. Is there any commentary, concern, statements, anything about access and permission through that land? Obviously, there has to be access if they're getting to residential, but is there anything in that parcel that might potentially inhibit a business access? I don't know if that might be a
Yes,
question.
I believe that might be a remnant of the parcel fabric transition. The GIS, the way that the parcel lines read, I believe that that might be an error. I think that the sliver that you're seeing that comes south is actually part of the deed description for that northern lot. I'll have to look into that. But I remember taking questions about this property in the past and noting that that would not have been an issue with access.
Okay, that's what I wasn't sure if it was a GIS mistake or if that was actually how the land was platted, and if that was a concern that we need to be discussing. So, thank you, Drew. No further questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ullman. Any other questions from members of the Plan Commission? Seeing none, we can turn to the petitioner or the petitioner's representative come forward. If you could state your name, you'll have 15 minutes.
Oh, sign in, okay. Mike Carmen, representing petitioner. Tom Greenman, there at the end is petitioner, and may have comments to add or questions to answer, depending on your questions. There's everything I do want to talk about. I want to talk about the type E first. That's a non-issue. That's not a PUD issue. That's just a disclosure. Within the PUD, we describe and define the use areas, A and B, and how much land is devoted to that use. We do not have to have the use areas match up with lot lines. In fact, because it's PUD, it wouldn't. It's the whole thing, all the roughly 15 acres together. But the preference would be to do the type E to match the lot lines to the use area line, area A and area B, that separation line, because the use area A is going to be roughly 5 acres. And so the goal for doing the type E, if we do it, would be simply to move the lot line to match up with the area A use line. And that's not a PUD issue, that's an after-the-fact issue if it happens at all. And that's also true for the reference to the subdivision. The use area B is restricted to residential uses. And it would be petitioners' hope eventually, get the homes rebuilt there, and there's a lot of work involved, and I know we'll talk about that in a minute, but that the opportunity would be that those homes would become owner-occupied as opposed to rentals, because as being within the PUD and not on separate parcels, we cannot convey them, other than to convey the whole 10 acres, and then we still end up with one residential owner-occupied perhaps, and renting out the second one. The idea would be eventually, if things would work out, and we could then be able to meet subdivision requirements to carve that into 2 separate legal lots, although still within the PUD, because the use limitation of residential would still apply, but then that'd be an opportunity to sell them so they become an owner-occupied as opposed to maintaining them as rentals. That's again, that's a future issue. It does not really affect the PUD one way or the other at all. So back then to the PUD issue, and honestly, as I have on occasion been disappointed with the staff report, because despite your number of questions, I yet figure out what they're saying about limited business. Are they saying that they would support it? Are they suggesting that you should? Or is it a trap? Well, drop the PUD, go for limited business, and by the way, we're going to recommend denying limited business, because I cannot conceive in what universe they would support a limited business designation at that location, nor that you would, quite honestly. I mean, your history would say there's no way. I mean, that whole reference to it. So what do we have with the PUD? If the issue is, well, you could do a boat storage in an LB, so you should be petitioning for an LB rezoning, are we not doing that anyway by doing it in the PUD? Because what does the PUD do for you that the LB zone does not do? It limits those uses to the boat storage and an associated office and a residential use in that office/trailer. If we would rezone to limited business and you would support that, look at the table of uses and everything that could be done by right on that property. I cannot conceive in what universe you would support that, or that the Board of Commissioners would approve it. But the PUD extracts out of the LB zone the boat storage use to use at a location within roughly 2 miles of the marina, the principal user of it. And that's the motive for why this site is not only, if you look at the historic use, the aerial photographs tell a story. I'm going to talk about anecdotally what some of the neighbors have said about it, but that this property has been used for commercial activity, some type of an auto-based business in the past. You can see in those aerial photographs boats strewn across the property. This has been informally been a boat storage area or boat abandonment area in some cases. It's been a vehicle maintenance repair type business in the past, maybe more appropriately called a chop shop, given what we've been told about the property, the history of what vehicles were being brought there, and the questions as the provenance of the chain of title on those vehicles. And they were brought there and things were done with them and then they were abandoned. Tom is way up to 1,000, estimated 1,000 tires that are abandoned and scattered on this property. You can't even see them in the photographs because their growth caravans them up. He's already started that process. There's a significant cost involved in removing all the abandoned parts, vehicles, boats, debris, and the tires. You end up having to hire somebody to come down for a fee per tire who's going to pick them up, remove them, take them to where they can be disposed of lawfully. And there's a huge investment in that. And that issue covers the whole 15 acres. We had a single owner on these who, selling it, wanted to unload all of it. Wanted out of owning that 10, 11 acre piece with the two residential uses in the past and all the abandoned tires and all the abandoned vehicle parts and debris that goes with it. So Tom acquires it, knowing that what he's confronted with on at least that 11 acre parcel is just a cleanup task, a huge cleanup task. There's evidence of locations for foundations of 2 separate single family home type structures and evidence of where septic fields apparently were in the past. The objective, while not stated perhaps in a number, but is just to re-put those back into use. When you look at the buildable area and what's the flat area and it's available, it easily handles a couple residential uses and stay within the buildable area requirements. That doesn't require tree removal at all, because the commitment is a conservation easement to preserve and safeguard the trees and the slopes and all that vegetated cover beyond what might be a reasonable lawn for the residential areas. So we think the PUD does a lot. It does allow the boat storage use, which is the ultimate goal. That's the permitted use that's primary in the PUD outline plan, is to get the boat storage unit there. It's actually putting back into use what unofficially has been done in years past. And again, the stories, the photographs tell that story. Anecdotally, for one of the neighbors who wanted to wax eloquently, I would say, and nope, it's not here tonight, so he's not going to do it again, about the history of that property, having owned property out there for many years, and some knowledge of the commercial boat or vehicle repair and alterations that were being done on the property, and now things got abandoned. But it is a cleanup operation, and that's part of this. The PUD, covering all 15 acres, guarantees the cleanup of all 15 acres. The recognition of a very large use area B, restricting it to residential use, that's the only use that's listed for that area, does as much to maintain the farm forest zoning as is reasonably possible, considering the only really reasonable use of that area is not for anything other than a couple residential structures in an area that's suitable for it. It's been demonstrated by past use of it, and septic field areas being there, that will be resolved with a proper septic permit, but it's going to require the Presby system now, not the in-ground tank system that would have been there before. And then we're back to the roughly 4 acres, which we would like to designate as a 5 acre use area, and hopefully ultimately adjust the lot line to match that up. But that's the make use of the existing trail that's been there, but would like to have, and ultimately the target would be to, with the office/residence in that trailer, then it becomes kind of an on-site live-on manager for the boat storage use. Doesn't take a lot of management, but does take some. And that would give us somebody on site to do that, living there, but most likely would have another job as well. And the on-site manager would be just a part job, not a full-time employment. It's just not enough management required for that type of boat storage. So why boat storage? Tom owns and operates the marina. And he has knowledge and firsthand experience repeatedly of the number of boats that get brought in, put in the water, and trailers have to be hauled home or hauled someplace else. And to find a place reasonably close on suitable land that's had some historic use in this nature anyway, to do that boat storage where they can put the boat in the water, take the trailer, drop it off at the boat storage, and leave it there for the season until they're ready to pull the boat out of the water and take it, and related type uses. His mark for that is not the public, it's current boat renters and dock renters at the marina. That's his mark for that. And keep it close at hand, keep those off the road, a quick, good, suitable, well-developed space to be able to park those trailers, or if they pull the boat out of the water for the season and choose not to haul it home, that it could be parked there in close proximity to the lake for use again the following season. So there are a lot of advantages to putting the boat storage at this location. It's not inconsistent with really what's been done on this property for many, many years, but now it would be done in accordance with the PUD plan in an orderly fashion, better design, adherence to concerns for trees, slope, growth, detention facilities. There's something of a detention pond back in that same quarter where we're proposing the current detention pond is about that. It's very small. It's unclear how well it operated in the past, but that's essentially the same area and adjacent to it that the engineer has targeted and done his design for the detention pond that the Drainage Board has reviewed recently. So that works. The preference for no paving on the boat storage area is, again, limits how much water runoff we're dealing with. It allows with the stone surface, very limited traffic. It's not a daily in and out. It's an in, out, park for the season for the most part and out. So, you know, the normal complaints about stone lots of limestone dust or anything like that just is not believed to be applicable. Do see the possibility of a demand for at least some covered boat storage, so that's the reference to possible expansion of a small area that would allow development of a little bit of covered boat storage as opposed to just the open lot storage. But it's well back off the road, can be appropriately screened. Those are really development questions, not PUD questions, but it's all doable. It's a good location for it. And the concept of, well, consider an LB straight zoning introduces, I don't want to call them evils, introduces adverse issues that I cannot fathom that you would support. Limiting that to the boat storage and eliminating all other LB uses in that manner, I would think would be a positive, and you would find it that way. Okay, so I will stop there. I don't know if Tom, you have anything you want to add now, or wait to see what questions? You'll need to come up, Tom.
Yeah, could you come to the podium, please? You'll have 3.5 minutes to speak.
I'm Tom Greenman, and a couple of items. Number one, I don't want this really to be for the public. As for signage, I think a realtor size sign, I don't want it, people calling us up. We've got a lot to do, but we have 10 rental boats that are little enough that we would store them there. We're allowed to store rental boats only at the marina out of the water. So we've got a lot of people with pontoon boats mainly that are asking, where can I put my trailer? And beyond that, I would have to talk to my insurance company, but I'm even thinking about making our employees put the boats in there, and it'll be fenced in, and I want it to not even be noticed from the highway. The history of the property is pretty colored. It was behind where we really want to have the main boat storage was a junkyard for cars. And one of the things we got at the assessor today shows even in 2005, a lot of cars parked there. So we're really taking a place where somebody might not ever want to build a house anyway and putting trailers in which will be clean. We won't allow any repair in there, any boat repair. So there won't be any runoff of oil or anything like that. And it's going to be fenced in, so some guy that's getting kicked out by his wife won't go live in his boat. He won't be allowed in there. So those are our plans. And there is an existing pond. The existing pond is just off the 4 acres, and so we thought it was a good idea to make it 5. and make the new pond where the old pond is. The old pond is not holding water, so I think the ground probably is sandier than we think right there. And the septic, when I bought the property, I had Todd Septic check the septic, and we had a water leak that created enough problem that the water company called us, and the septic handled it all, never came up, or we never noticed that we were having a leak. So that's really all I have. Do you have any questions of me?
Yeah, Mr. Pittsford?
Yeah, the proposed zoning for the 10 acres would be under state residential, which allows 1 acre lots.
No. We want to have 2 lots.
You are going to limit it to 2 lots.
Right.
As
And
is,
we'll probably give this to my daughters, 1 to each of my daughters
okay.
that already live in Monroe County. They may want it. I have a son that might want one of them.
Okay.
So
So
we're
that
really
would be-
not planning on building.
Okay, and that would be consistent with what would be allowed by right under forest reserve.
Yes, it's not clear in the outline plan that that is the intention. So if that's what you're wanting to do, it should be enumerated as such that 2 lots will be created, and how large would those lots be, what uses are permitted in those lots.
Right, well, the
et cetera.
petitioner's letter states
No more
that,
than 2.
if I might, okay, petitioner's letter states, as allowed in RE zone, staff report says ER, and identifies 1 acre lots. I'm taking for granted those are the same things, different terminology, because it does change. But if petitioner left the 10 acres as forest reserve zoning, and the PUD was proposing limited business or whatever on the other, that's a horse of a different color, am I correct? From what they're offering.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
That's different from what they're offering here. What he just testified to is different from what is in this letter.
Yes, the letter needs to be more detailed about exactly what they want to do.
Okay. Does staff's recommendation change any, other than the fact we don't like PUDs anymore? Does the less intense development of the 10 acres change staff's recommendation?
I can't speak to the
Or
full
would it-
extent of
okay.
what staff's recommendation would be, but I do believe that some work needs to be done with the level of detail in the outline plan.
And it would have an impact on the way staff views this, because there are 2 different approaches to the use of land in the ECO3,
Correct.
which is significant.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify on that, Jerry, I don't know that this PUD would rezone it with the eco provision unless they added that in. Also, I still don't understand why the southern area, if by right they could create 2 lots under the current zoning designation today, and all they want in the end is 2 lots, why that would ever be included in the PUD proposal.
That's why I asked the question.
I'm not understanding, so, yeah,
Yeah, that's why I asked the question, because they're 2 different things now.
right.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Thomas?
I was going to say, I think the reason it's a PUD is because it has mixed use. Once you add that in, if you only have a boat rental place, then it's 1 use with an office, right?
And if I may, just as a follow-up, I view this entirely differently based on petitioner's assertion that the desire is not to seek development of the 10-acre portion of this subdivision or property. Thank you.
Okay, any other, Mr. Enright Randolph?
I'm going to have a kind of a question for petitioner representative, and also planning. So I'll do my best to kind of run through this. First, I do want to talk about how much time we have spent reducing a number of uses in petitions in the past. We don't necessarily we're not necessarily looking at PUD, we're actually just reducing the uses, so it's still like zone limited business, but they can't do X, Y, Z. That has to be even more difficult to, for planning to kind of have oversight and making sure that they're following kind of what was laid out in there in compliance. We've spent lots of time doing that. The way this is shaking out, they're kind of only wanting one use. So, you know, that is a tool. A PUD is a tool. I would hate to bring this back as a limited business and we strike every use out except for the boat storage. Now that then goes to my question. When did boat storage actually become allowable use? Because this is recent, correct? What zone was there allowed boat storage?
So we're recommending the petitioner seek a LB rezone, which is the by right zoning district that allows boat storage.
When was that use added? Because I remember discussing the definition. It's fairly new. And Mr. Carmen, if you're familiar with that, please. Right. So just kind of wanting to kind of bring some context to some of my following questions. Where is the closest boat storage that isn't in a PUD? I'll kind of skip that one. Where is the closest area that is zoned that allows boat storage? So those similar questions, but different. You mentioned number of boats. Is this accurate? A storage facility utilizing enclosed building or outdoor area for seasonal year-round storage for 4 or more boats? That's a little vague. So I think a limit on boats could.
Well, there's a drawing. It's got the number of spaces. I'm not sure we can get that many in there.
Right. Well, that I think brings some more specificity to what this PUD is really asking. So if you are thinking there's a cap, that would be interesting to know. Obviously, there will always be limitations just with the size.
I think when you count them, it comes out to like 30 or 35, and I'm not sure.
Okay. Just I
I'm
wanted
not sure
to ask
how good
the question.
people are at parking boats, and maybe less.
So
I know I'm not any good. I can't even park the boats. It's going to be somebody else.
Right. I can't speak for my colleagues, but I feel like that would be something that would help me understand kind of what is actually going to occur on this property. And then I guess I'll go back to is this following all of the boat storage? Because you said it's by right, but is it permitted with standards or is it just allowed in limited business?
So the property is not zone limited business right now?
No, in a limited business zone, would this be permitted with standards or allowed?
It does have standards. It's
Right.
item number 41
Right.
in Chapter 802.
Right. And I guess, thanks. Sorry I have to ask questions, I know. It just allows people to understand what I'm getting at. Are they meeting the standards like setbacks, screening? I feel like they're meeting everything except for the unclosed boat storage that is required for this type of use. I might be wrong, but from my understanding, to allow boat storage, it has to be enclosed. And that was from our work of creating the standards for this allowed use, which was just recently introduced. So what I'm getting at, there's not that many places to store boats. You have to meet standards.
Sorry, I just want to chime in. So the boat storage use was added into the ordinance in 1998. And the definition right now says a storage facility utilizing enclosed buildings and/or unenclosed outdoor areas for seasonal or year-round storage of 4 or more boats.
Okay.
Can I?
Thank you. Now, I'll go ahead and show kind of my ignorance a little bit here. Is That was RV storage, or that we were addressing just recently. But I think, honestly, there's not that many areas zoned in these rural parts of the county that allow this type of use from a permitted with standards perspective. With that all said, we have a large lake that is used for recreational purposes. You look at the aerials of this property, it was pretty dirty, cluttered. It looks a lot cleaner. I think you've shown your effort of being, a good steward of the property and cleaning it up and, taking that initiative upon yourself. And supporting something like this, I could almost get behind today due to the fact that people are going to continue to do this, and it's just going to become enforcement cases unless we allow places in the county to provide this service. So that's my conclusion. I'm going to just, 1 second. You seem like you wanted to mention something, so
driving
please.
into town today, we drove past 446, and they got boats that you can see, and they're everywhere, and then we drove past Hawkeye's Marine, which he's parking them right on. We don't want people to even know we got a boat storage there. That's the point. We don't want people coming there to try to rob us. We want it to be a secret. We want, we got a trailer stolen from our parking lot at the 4th of July last year. Believe it or not, the DNR caught the guy a year later, but he's not in jail, and he stole a $8,000 boat with our trailer, and he's still not in jail. So it's better to keep it secret.
Well, I appreciate that comment. That actually kind of goes with several of my questions. Thank you.
We won't tell anyone it's there.
Good.
Do any other members?
It's not this on TV.
Do any other members of the Plan Commission have questions for the petitioner?
Not for the petitioner.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Greben. Thank you, Mr. Carmen. So we will turn now to public comment. Is there anybody in the room or online who wishes to speak in favor of this petition? If you're in the room, please come to the podium. If you're online, please raise your virtual hand. Okay, seeing no one, if there's anyone who wishes to speak against this petition in the room, I'm assuming not, please come forward, or if you're online, please raise your virtual hand. Okay, we will come back now to the Plan Commission for comments, questions. Yeah, Ms. Clements?
I have a question, and this could be either for Mr. Schilling, if he's online, or for you, Ms. Nestor Jelen. It's my understanding that with this PUD, the boat storage would be the only use that would be allowed on this PUD. In other words, as Mr. Carmen eloquently stated, it's a tighter restriction on the owners than limited business. And so the use for these owners on the property would be forever limited to boat storage. Is that correct?
I believe they stated boat storage with an accessory office, but then within that same lot, I think there was one residence on that property. So it would be residential, I think single-family residential and boat storage would be the only two permitted uses.
So I find that I find this to be a very intelligent approach to a complicated property, frankly. I find it to be ecologically remediative, if that's a word. And I find it to be responsible in terms of your stewardship of the forest reserve classification. I find that the intensity of your request would be lower than that which would be permitted by right. And so I am intending to vote in favor of this unless I'm persuaded else by my colleagues. If I'm wrong in some way, my tendency would be to vote for this with appreciation, frankly.
Thank you, Ms. Clements. Mr. Ullman?
Question for staff. I'm looking at the CDO and the proposed stuff, and I know this might be a little thinking too forward, but hopefully not too far in the future. But the proposed zoning for that 4-acre lot to the north is CVR. And when I go in and look at the uses for that, one of the uses for CVR in the CDO is residential storage structure. Would gravel lot boat storage? No, not. I'm getting a head shake. That means no, it would not be under. Would boat storage be available under CVR?
No, so the property is currently proposed as CVR, the 4-acre lot, and then the lot to the south is currently proposed as forest, forest residential 5. And the reason is because that northern parcel doesn't meet the 5-acre minimum requirement for the forest residential zoning. So the residential storage structure use is just if you want to put a accessory or basically a storage structure on your property to store your own belongings before you build a primary structure, and it's very limited just to your own items. No commercial transactions can take place.
Okay. Now, in CVR zoning, how far off base, or what would be the possibility of asking for a zoning, what's the term, like a petition, a request for adding a boat storage to a CVR zoning in this particular case? Would that be a possibility?
They would petition for what's called a use variance to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And the bar for getting a staff recommendation for those particular petitions is rather high, given that the requirements of a use variance, there's language about proving that there's a hardship, and that language is often difficult to get around in order to get a positive staff recommendation. That being said, there have been several use variance petitions with a negative staff recommendation where the Board of Zoning Appeals does find it compelling, and they do vote in approval of that particular petition.
So, sorry, my questions do have a direction of travel here. So kind of what I'm hearing off of your statement is that if, CDO goes through, this becomes CVR, that the best course of action would be not a use petition, but a rezone to limited business. Is that to be able to do boat storage there?
To be able to do boat storage there. To have boat storage and a residence on the same lot, you would have to have a PUD.
Okay. Thank you. If I may finish with a statement, I kind of have to be in very similar camp to Margaret's comments about I don't have the history for the PUD and everything of how PUDs have transpired in Monroe County in the past, as some of you guys do, but I do have to say that when I look at the way this property is being used, and Tron mentioned a comment about how close is the other closest boat storage. I kind of looked at that a little bit when I was inspecting this, and there's one 4 miles to the north, but there's also 2 boat ramps in that 4 miles, and there's 2 more boat ramps to the south. But above that, my biggest concern when this first came up in the docket and when I first started looking at this was the concern about 446 gets some rather quick traffic through it, and it kind of sits on a bend there. When I drove out there to look, that trip just from Allen Creek, which sits maybe half a mile to the south, it sits on that bend, but there's quite a significant shoulder there that's pretty well maintained. And I will add a comment for everybody's consideration that I've tailored a lot of things, and if I would feel more than comfortable pulling into that parking lot with a significant trailer, because that bend does have pretty good visibility. If Highway had a different comment to that, I don't know, but I will say that if a safety was a concern, I think it does fare positively from the safety aspect. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ullman. Mr. Pittsford?
Yeah, just to finish a thought on Mr. Ullman. Highway didn't have any comment on this. Drainage didn't have any comment on this. So the 2 bugaboos in this area have been cleared. But obviously by petitioner statement versus this evening versus submittal, we're not in sync on what's being presented versus what was intended. And I think the easiest way to move this forward, it will be heard without motion anyway, but I'm going to move denial of the request for waiver of final hearing. So by denying the final hearing waiver, it goes on to the next meeting. So my motion is denial of request for waiver of final hearing.
I'm going to second that and also say that there's some more specificity that I think could help with this PUD, and I think we alluded to that today, and it sounds like you'll get the support you needed, but let's just get this PUD right.
But on that discussion of that item, I'd like to just, suggest that the specificity on the PUD could be heard by the commissioners, and that between now and the time the commissioners hear it, that the petitioner might be able to move forward while the season is good. But I just want to say that I would like to approve this with the suggestion that they work with staff to finalize the PUD portion before going to the Board of Commissioners. But that's how I feel about it. I know there's a motion and a second on the table, so if we need to take the vote, we can take the vote.
I'm not too against walking back my second, but if you would permit, could we allow the petitioner or the petitioner representative to answer that question as far as time restraints go and the need to get this forward? Because I know the cleaner we can get it to the commissioner, the easier it can move through that process as well.
The petitioner can now, even now, commit to amending the PUD outline plan to specify no more than 2 residential structures in Area B. That's an easy thing to fix, and ultimately put that in writing as an amendment to the outline plan. You asked something else. The specificity about other information as to location of other boat storage units. No.
No. Mine was limited on the number of boats that you intend to store, if that's even desired, as far as a question there. But I guess more to the point, would you rather us act today and make those commitments on the fly? I know that's not anything we typically do. Or would you prefer just to come back? Sorry,
I'll
Jerry.
also say that from a staff perspective, we have at least 6 or 7 critical questions unanswered from the petitioner's filing.
Okay, well,
so we recommended denial. So if you were moving to move forward with a positive recommendation, we would have a lot of questions for the petitioner to clean this up to make it ready.
We would prefer to come back next month.
Perfect.
We'll do that.
All right, then I'll call the question in my second stance.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So Jackie, if you could go ahead and call the roll. And we can go
Okay,
from there.
and so this vote is to deny the petitioner's request for a waiver of final hearing. So this will essentially be continued to the next meeting, which will be, let me pull that up, September 26th. Thank you. Because of budget hearings, it's not on the third Tuesday.
Would that be our CDO date?
No, our CDO date is September 24th.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
It's going to be a busy week.
Yes, okay, that's fine.
All right, so it's continued to Thursday, September 26th.
So it's a Thursday instead of a Tuesday.
I'll call the roll on it
Okay.
to see if everyone agrees. So a vote yes is a vote to deny the waiver of final hearing and continue it to September 26th. Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Thomas, Margaret Clements, Tron Enright Randolph.
And a thank you to Mr. Morris for allowing me to engage again with the petitioner.
Scott Ferris.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Okay, thank you all. We'll see you back on September 26th, you said, Jackie?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carver, Mr. Greenman.
Mr. Morris, if I may, I know this may be a little bit out of regular rules, but I I will more than likely not be here in the September 26th meeting, but I just wanted to stress that, you know, I think if efforts are made to clean this up, I think that it sounds like the efforts are being made, that I think that this is going in the right direction. My statement still stands that I support the idea of a PUD being used on this property, so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ullman. So moving on to case REZ-24-6, the Patterson rezone from PB to ER. This is the preliminary hearing with the waiver of final hearing requested. So Drew, I'll turn it back over to you for the third time.
Thank you. This property is located at 3478 South Night Ridge Road. It is one 2.13 acre parcel in Salt Creek Township, Section 17. And the request is to rezone from pre-existing business to estate residential. The petition site is currently vacant and is mostly wooded. In 2023, the petitioner removed all pre-existing non-conforming residential structures, including a manufactured home, via demolition permit. In May of 2024, the petitioner submitted a residential pole barn structure permit to construct a 40-foot by 80-foot residential accessory structure. Upon review by staff, it was communicated to the petitioner that the residential uses are not permitted in the PB zoning district and that a rezone will be required. Additionally, residential storage structures are limited to a square footage when there is no primary residence on the subject property. With this information, the petitioner submitted a rezone application and indicated to the staff that they will adjust their construction plans of the accessory structure to include a dwelling unit. Including a dwelling unit in the construction plans will require a new residential building permit application, which requires the submission of a certified plot plan, but does allow them to construct the storage structure with any size instead of being limited. Due to the lot size of 2.13 acres, the petitioner chose to rezone the property to estate residential, which requires only 1 acre to develop. The zoning map amendment would rezone the property from pre-existing business to estate residential if approved, and the definitions I have included of those districts in this presentation. So here is the pre-existing business district and the estate residential district definitions. The draft zoning map of the county development ordinance indicates the subject property will transition into the Conservation Residential 2.5 zone, or CVR, if not rezoned under this petition. However, the property exhibiting only 2.13 acres, it would automatically require a minimum lot size variance in order to develop. If the property is rezoned to estate residential under Chapter 802 with this application, the CDO will likely transition the property into a similar district known as the Residential 1 Zone, or RES. On the right side of the screen, I have a table that talks about height, bulk, area, and density comparisons between the estate residential zone and the pre-existing business zone. I will note staff is unsure, was unable to determine if a prior business did operate on this specific parcel. The history is a little clouded. However, staff was able to determine staff is under the assumption that the original zoning of this lot to pre-existing business at the 1997 zoning ordinance may have likely been involved with a known prior business that was adjacent to this parcel to the west. So it's likely that that business owned both of these parcels in the past, and that's how it got zoned pre-existing business in the first place. This did go to the Plan Review Committee on July 11th, 2024 for discussion. Board members asked related questions about the property, whether or not a business use would be pursued after the rezone, and the answer to that was no. The petitioner does not intend to operate a business on this property after the rezone. And the PRC members voted 6-0 to forward this petition to the Plan Commission with a positive recommendation. So here we have the location map of the parcel in question, as well as the zoning map. You will note that the pink area is the pre-existing business, and there is a small sliver of forest reserve on the bottom side. I was unable to determine if that was a function of the parcel lines on the Elevate or if that is actually split zoned. It's difficult to determine. But a rezone or the CDO process would clean this up either way. Here is the buildable area depiction for the property. Here we have the letter to the Plan Commission stating their request. I will note also that this property is located in the Environmental Constraints Overlay, Area 3. So back to that slope map, it's slopes greater than 18% that are protected from any land disturbance. Here we have a conceptual site plan that was submitted by the petitioner. And again, as I stated, the intent of having the dwelling established in the same structure will trigger the need for a certified plot plan that is required for all new residential building permit applications. So it will be a little bit more accurate and more detailed as it is required to be certified by a licensed professional surveyor or civil engineer. I also included the use tables for the pre-existing business zone as well as the state residential zone. As you may note in the past, with your knowledge of the pre-existing business, there is a lot of uses available to the pre-existing business zone based on the level of intensity of the current use, given that the current use was residential but now vacant. That intensity would be low. So all of the uses that you see on the left table are the uses that are available on that property as zoned pre-existing business. On the right is the use table of uses that are available to the state residential zone. And again, the property owner is stating that they are simply wanting to construct a residential storage structure and a dwelling on this property to be used as such. Okay, that brings me to staff's recommendation. Staff recommends forwarding a positive recommendation to the Monroe County Board of Commissioners based on the petition's compatibility with the Monroe County Comprehensive Plan and subject to the highway engineer and MS4 coordinator reports. I will now take any questions.
Do any members of the Plan Commission have questions for Drew? Doesn't look like it, Drew. Thank you. So we can turn now to the petitioners or the petitioners' representatives. If there's anything you'd like to say, you're welcome to come to the podium, or if you're online, please raise your virtual hand and we'll allow you to speak. Okay, thank you. It's easy enough. We can turn now to public comment portion. If there's anybody online who wishes to speak for or against this petition, please raise your virtual hand. Seeing no one, we'll come back to the Plan Commission for questions, comments, or a motion.
Pick me.
Mr. Pittsford?
I have a motion, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sure there's no comments or questions first.
I thought we'd already closed.
Okay. No, I
All right. All right. Sorry about that. In case REZ-2426, this is a request for rezone from pre-existing business to state residential with a request for waiver of final hearing. This petition is located at 3478 South Night Ridge Road in Salt Creek Township, consisting of 2.13 acres plus or minus. It is my motion that we forward this to the County Board of Commissioners with a positive recommendation based on staff report and the petition's compatibility with the Monroe County Comprehensive Plan and subject to the highway engineer and MS4 coordinator reports. I further add that this motion would include a waiver of final hearing. That is my motion in sum.
Second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to send a favorable recommendation of petition REZ-24-6, which is a rezone request from pre-existing business to a state residential and a waiver of final hearing. This is a request to send a favorable recommendation to the commissioners. A vote yes is a vote to send the favorable recommendation. Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Margaret Clements,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Scott Ferris,
Yes.
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved, 9-0.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you both for coming out tonight. I believe that is the last item on the agenda. Item SPP-24-2 is continued. So Jackie, do you have any reports for us tonight?
So we sent out 39,500 postcards. Yay.
I've only got one text message.
So just for anyone in the public that's listening, our county development ordinance hearing is September 24th at 5:30 in this room, and we will also host a hybrid option on Teams. We've had a great rock star planner of the day schedule going on since Friday. Our planners are all hands on deck, doing a great job answering the public's questions, and has been able to keep up. It has been busy. So we appreciate your patience and your work on reviewing the CDO.
appreciate
Thank you.
you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Jackie, to you and your staff for keeping up with
I
all
have
the
a
questions.
question.
Yeah, Commissioner Thomas.
Are we going to have an executive committee meeting regarding the budget before you go to the council?
Oh, very good.
So we can, I can send that out. I did send something to Jeff, but let me go ahead and just send something to
Okay.
you all.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And then, Mr. Schilling, I believe you're online. Do you have any legal reports for us tonight?
Let me promote Mr. Schilling. I think his attendance status isn't, okay, let's see. Okay, Mr. Schilling should be able to unmute himself at this point.
Mr. Schilling, do you have any legal reports for us tonight?
Mine is still open.
Dave, you'll have to press unmute on your computer or iPad if you're there.
Okay. I'm going to assume there are no legal reports tonight. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.